Hey everyone, this is Libertarian Black Man. Homelessness in America is a major problem, but the homelessness issue is worse in 3 states in particular. Hawaii, California, and New York have the highest per capita level of homelessness in the nation. This is not by accident, but it is in fact by design. According to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, this is their website, which they use national statistics to calculate the rate of homelessness throughout the country. States that are in the darker colors here, like New York, Oregon, California, and Hawaii, are where the homelessness problem is at its worst. States that are in the lighter color are where the homeless problem is at the lowest levels. This star here actually represents Washington, D.C., and the homelessness problem there is higher than in any state. So, in Hawaii, you have 50.5 homeless people per 10,000, according to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, as of last year. In New York, the number is 45.3, California, 34.2. Oregon, it's also about 34 people. In Washington, D.C., it is actually over 100 people per 10,000. Now, I said this is not by accident but by design, and the reason I said that is because it correlates perfectly with the level of individual and economic freedom there is. According to the Freedom in the 50 States Project, published by the Cato Institute, which is a research organization that studies economic and social issues in this country, but mainly looking to see what the causes are for a lot of economic issues. States that are ranked in order of their level of individual and economic freedom. So if you're ranked number 1, that means you're the freest state in the country. If you're ranked number 50, you are the least free state. This is the Freedom in the 50 States Project's website. States that are in the orange here are states that are the most free. So you have New Hampshire, Indiana, Colorado, Nevada, and Florida as the freest states. I believe Florida, as of last year, is ranked number 1. Then you have states that are in the light blue color: Texas, Oklahoma, Alaska, a few others. They are in the next level, the right below the orange states. And as the state colors get darker, like Arkansas, Louisiana, and then Mississippi, these are states moving in the direction of being least free, meaning having more government regulation, more taxes, more government programs. The states that are in the darkest color are New York, Vermont, New Jersey, Hawaii, California. These are the least free states, and it should come as no surprise that the states that are at the bottom of the list are California, Hawaii, and New York. California ranked 48th, Hawaii 49th at the very bottom, New York at 50th, meaning it is the most regulated, most taxed, the state with the most government involvement in the economy and in people's lives. So it correlates with homelessness. The states that have the highest rate of homelessness, Hawaii, New York, and California, have the lowest level of economic freedom. And the reason why is because high regulation equals high housing prices. So wherever it's more difficult to build a home because of regulation, because the government says you can't build unless you get a permit or you get approved by a board, or you have to fill out paperwork, you have to satisfy a certain number of conditions which could take years, this makes it more difficult to build a home. And as a result, there aren't many homes on the market and home prices are higher. So it is also not a coincidence that the 3 states that are the least free and have the highest rate of homelessness also have the highest housing prices. Hawaii is number 1, California number 2, New York number 3. Most expensive housing as of last year in the 3 states that are the least free and have the highest rate of homelessness. In San Francisco, this city has actually made the news for having a high amount of human waste being produced every day on the streets, and they are hiring people and paying them $70,000 a year to clean it up, because there are so many people who simply have nowhere to go, and it's become a public health issue. In one of America's most well-known cities, we are having a public health emergency, and we're having to spend, the government over there, tens of thousands of dollars per person per year to clean up what is left over from the homeless situation. So it correlates with freedom and with regulation. I talk about freedom and regulation in my book, Say No to Big Government, My Case for Maximum Freedom, which I have published earlier this year. Talks about how this country used to grow faster and create more prosperity for more people when the government was small, when taxes were low and few, and when regulations were few, and when the money kept its value. When government spends more money, it devalues the money because it has to print money when it can't borrow enough from the private sector and when it can't cut enough from government programs. When money loses its value, everything costs more. Homes cost more. More people find it more difficult to put a roof over their head. They have rent control laws in San Francisco and in New York and in throughout cities throughout these states that make it very difficult for people to want to rent, because if they're watching the cost of living go up but they can't charge more as a result of rent control, then they will not rent. And you'll have housing shortages, and then you'll have the property actually beginning to decay because people will not put money into maintaining property when they simply can't raise rent in order to do so, to bring in the cash to maintain property. So we need to understand that more government equals more homelessness, more poverty, more despair, more income inequality. I go through and I talk about the Industrial Revolution, the Great Depression, the Great Society, the Great Recession, and all the regulations, taxes, and government spending that came during those 4 different eras that have made it more difficult for the homeless, for people in poverty, and for people who are just trying to get ahead in life to prosper. We need to roll back government, roll back regulations, not just at the federal level, but also at the state and local level. In fact, the homeless issue is not a problem as much of federal regulation as it is of state and local regulation. Housing prices, for example, in Texas did not rise anywhere near as much as they did in California during the 2000s. Because in Texas, they have very few regulations that tell you when and how to build a house. In California, they have many, and so home prices skyrocketed during the 2000s, and so did homelessness. You also had very little change in home prices in Texas, because Texas is one of the more free states, and home prices were much more stable, and they have a much lower rate of homelessness. So freedom and prosperity directly correlate, and the more you have of freedom, the more you have of prosperity, the less homelessness, the less poverty. Roll back freedom, increase the size of government, increase the state's influence in our lives, and you're going to make all of the problems of our living situation worse. So it is not a coincidence that homelessness is has a direct relationship to housing prices, and that housing prices has a direct relationship to government involvement in the marketplace, with subsidies funding home purchases, driving up the price of housing, and regulations on when and where to build a house, making it more difficult for home builders to produce homes. It all works together. And the only way we're going to decrease homelessness is not by government giving people homes. It's not by government giving people money to buy homes. It is by letting the people build more homes, by decreasing regulations, get rid of rent control, get rid of things that incentivize people not to rent, get rid of taxes that slow down economic growth, make job creation more difficult. Get rid of any government barrier that exists, of which there are many, and you will see poverty decline, homelessness decline, and prosperity soar. Thanks for watching. We hope to have you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and see you in the next video.